Okay, everyone. This is video number 1 for the week of April the 13th. Um, we will be discussing today the essay you all were supposed to read. And yes, it's kind of long, but it's probably the longest we'll read for the rest of the class. In fact, it is the longest we will read for the rest of the class. So hopefully, after a couple weeks or however long it's been since you've watched one of the videos, you have now read Bronies, The Colorful Side of Millennial Escapism by Jessica Goodman. If you have not read that, this video will be very weird to watch. So stop now, go find the document on Canvas page, and please read it. Bronies, The Colorful Side of Millennial Escapism. Now, I really wish I could ask you right now how you felt about it in person, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it. I'll imagine some hands going up in front of me, I guess. Um, Maybe that's something you can say in the discussion board. Hey, I liked this because of this reason. I disliked it because of this reason. Here are some things I liked about it. We should see an active discussion board on this one. Favorite sentence, least favorite sentence. What the heck is this thing about? Obviously, that would be a good thing to put in the discussion board for this video. So think about those things. Um, Yes, put that in the discussion boards. Talk with each other. They've been going pretty well so far, um, so we will continue with that model. All right, so let's get into this essay. Please pull it out or look at it as we're talking. Make notes on it. Models are one of the most important ways to learn. As you can tell, my kind of process through this whole course has been, hey, let me try to explain to you what this paper is, and let's break down some models. Remember the things spoken about in terms of artifacts and field research and things like this. Refer back to the ethnography reading, the Bruce Ballinger reading, and also the assignment prompt for technical information. Um, Let me just say this before we get into the essay. Your interviews and field research for this paper are crucial for an ethnography. You have to be able to see something, you have to be able to talk to someone. I know that it's almost impossible to do. Uh, Depending on your topic, it might be hard to do that right now. So you might have to just use, for field research, you might have to just use videos online, movies, documentaries, etc. Also, interviews will be weird if you choose to go that route with the interview, but we're still in communication. We can still find someone to talk with either through phone, internet, uh, various websites that you communicate with people. So try to find a way around that if you're using an interview. Uh, okay, let's get into the reading. So if you look at it right now, it starts very, very, very clearly with a scene. This is a model that shows you an example of how you can start any sort of paper, but especially an ethnography with a scene. Uh, it's very vivid. In the basement of Webster Hall, 200 fans in the East Village at 10:20 p.m. in the back of the dimly lit room. Those are all scenes, details, things that we have done repeatedly in this class since the first paper. That's always an option. It's always an option to start with a scene. It's one of the best ways, as we've learned, to get your point across, or just to get some visuals in the reader's head right away. It also shows place, scene, details. Those are all elements of a scene. So again, I'll emphasize that you can start that way. Um, if you look at the sentence where it says 20 fans were clearly segregated from the rest of the group, that's just one little sentence that's already showing a difference in members of the group. Here we have the bronies. We know we're talking about bronies during this ethnography. We know that we're going to hear or read about bronies. And right away we see that in this building where they gather, some are gathering differently. Some are gathering somewhere else. Why is this split? I think Jessica Goodman here is kind of insinuating that there are some rifts or differences within the group, how they perceive themselves versus other members in the group. We'll see that many times in this essay. I think the writer here kind of leans on that, and it's a very effective way, I think, in this piece. Um, uh, she, she immediately goes into dialogue. She says that when I say hey, you say ocean. Again, just another way of immersing us in the scene. We're hearing things at that point. She's really using all the scenic techniques you can use right away. Um, After those first two paragraphs of scene, you'll see she goes into the paragraph that says, a dozen more bronies, adult fans of Hasbro's animated TV show My Little Pony, made their way to the back of the room. There's just a quick explanation of what a brony is, because we need to know that pretty early on in the paper what it is. So no matter who you write about, what group you're writing about, you can't just assume that the reader will know what that is. Um, I had a paper written about sneakerheads, and I had no idea what that was. People says people that are way into sneakers, and I might still be wrong on this. People who are way into sneakers and spend most of their money on collecting vintage or new or special edition sneakers. Okay, well, I needed to know that. You can't just assume people know what a sneakerhead is if that's your group. Even if it's something like roller derby participants. Maybe some people don't know what that is. A quick line explaining what and who your group is, the essence of your group. It's always important. Otherwise, your reader's just going to put down the paper because you haven't told them what this is. Uh, a lot of people don't know what bronies are. If you're expected to read the whole paper without knowing what a brony is, it's just not going to work. You're not going to get that reader. Okay, so there's the explanation in that paragraph, which is paragraph number 3. Um, this is used throughout the entire piece very heavily, so I want to point out this, and I want you to look out for this aspect throughout the rest. So if you see the sentence toward the middle to end of that paragraph that says, a few fans hold colorful plushies, stuffed animals modeled after the show's pony characters. That's what the prompt and the readings mean about artifacts. Things that the group uses, owns, what defines them, what they are what they kind of incorporate, and what they use physically in their group. We can see now that some bronies hold on to colorful plushies of the stuffed animals. That's important to know. It's an interesting detail. It's something that keeps the reader going. Think of any documentary you have seen, and you go, "Oh, they use that." I'm struggling right now for specific examples, but artifacts, things the group uses, has in their possession, something that's essential to who they are. Not just that they have Converse on. That could mean anything. It might not have any relation to the group, but something that is relevant to the group. Obviously, stuffed animals of My Little Pony is a relevant detail to a group that is focused on My Little Pony. So here we see, why are these people in a dimly lit concert hall actually holding stuffed animals? We already have all these questions going on in our mind, and whether or not you found it interesting, it still grabs the reader, or a good portion of people that read this, hopefully you. Um, the materials of the group are important. Notice in the next paragraph, this is very important. Ball voices half a dozen characters on My Little Pony, and she and her band have made appearances at BronyCon, an annual convention for adult fans of the show that was founded in 2011. That does a few things. It shows us time, 2011, not too long ago, or actually 9 years ago, I suppose. But still, it shows us time when this thing started, or when this convention started. But it also shows us that there's a convention. There's another place that these people convene and congregate into groups. It's very important to know that. If your group does that, like the Quidditch player example I've been using on Tulane's campus, it's interesting to know that maybe they meet every Thursday night on the quad at Tulane. That's that's an actual place. It's a place that they gather. It's important to see where they go. Yeah, they're in this dimly lit hall, but we know that there's also a convention for adult fans. This is also telling us the age member that the writer is focusing on, an adult. Why is that happening? Because it's a little bit weird, frankly, and it's a little bit interesting. Why are there adult fans who like stuffed animals of My Little Pony? Now, this writer is using techniques to kind of put these things and images on our mind, so we start to question and we keep reading. That's what the whole piece is generally doing, and we gain information as we go along. Um, I'll use this example again, although I've been trying not to. If you've seen Tiger King, one of the reasons, the show on Netflix, the documentary series on Netflix, which might be good or bad for different reasons, but still, they use this technique of slowly giving more and more details and places. We see this is in Oklahoma. And we go, oh, there's another sanctuary in South Carolina. Oh, there's another one in Florida. Okay. Um, and at the end of each episode, people keep saying online or on uh, whenever you hear someone talk about this show, they say, "Oh my gosh!" Then in the next episode, we learn this, and just when you think that's crazy, you see this. That's kind of what this writer is doing here, um, baiting us into each new section with information that keeps piling on. It's a good technique, so consider it. Write that in the margins. Make notes of this stuff in the margins, and see if it fits for your group. Okay. Um, let's see. Let's skip the real time. And we'll go here. So, one, two, three, four, 5 paragraphs into the piece. Bronies grew in number as soon as the TV show rebooted in 2010 with the help of websites like 4chan and Reddit. All of a sudden, like we've seen in other papers we've written, we have a paragraph here to show us the history. The history of the group is important, just like the history of the problem was in your argumentative papers. We're getting the history of the group. We see where they've developed, when, 2010, where, the internet, 4chan and Reddit, and to the surprise of the show's creators, the cartoon became increasingly popular with males aged 13 to 35. And we go, that's a strange group to like My Little Pony, especially as we get up there toward 35. Uh, or at least unconventional. This is interesting. We want to keep reading. We start to see who this group is age-wise, which is also important to know. If I use the Quidditch example again, it'd be much more interesting if there were it would be interesting to know that there is an 86-year-old Quidditch player who's on the team at Tulane's campus. You go, wait, is he a student? Is he not a student? Why is he part of this? And the why question we keep posing to the reader. Um, let's see, there's an LSU reference here. Toward the end, it says, toward the end of this paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph, it says, the survey found, all right, so let's back up a bit. She's using ethos here to locate a study. And she's referencing a study conducted by Patrick Edwards and Marcia Redden. This is in the 5th paragraph. 2 psychology professors at the University of Georgia and Louisiana State University. What do you think this does? Like in any other paper, it adds ethos, which adds credibility to the paper itself. This is not just these things are her thoughts are backed up by experts in the field, as she explains. And she writes at the end of the 5th paragraph, the survey found 86% of bronies were male. 86 is a high percentage, and the average age was 21. a stark difference from the show's target demographic of young girls. So she's saying the show was created with the intention of reaching young girls, but 86% of these bronies are male, and the average age was 21. So we go, well, if that was the demographic that was the target, why has there been a shift? What's going on? So hopefully, she's hoping at this point, you know what a brony is, you know the history of where it came from, or where the system came from, or sorry, the culture came from, and you're going, okay, there's some insynchronicities going on here. Why are there older males, adult males attracted to this show? Um, if we go down, she continues to talk about Edwards and Redden, the researchers, were drawn to the a stereotypical phenomenon on two levels. So pretty much what she's doing there is giving a reason for why they studied it. She's not giving a reason for why she did, although that would have been, to me, a perfectly fine thing to do. In fact, it kind of maybe would have added some momentum because she's saying, here, look, this is why I did this. But uh, we'll talk about that in 1 second as we turn the pages. Let's see. The history. Okay. On the next page, study that intro. Study how she opens. Scene, history, etc. Details. On the next page, toward the beginning, it says, Redden said that most bronies tend to be optimistic, upbeat, and open to new experiences, but they're not one big homologous group. In fact, the pair have identified 5 distinct type of bronies. So what she's saying here, what the writer is saying, is that she's generally saying how the group acts, or the group's attitude and mentality. Also, very important to know in an ethnography when you're studying a subculture. Well, what are they thinking? Why the heck are they this way? Okay, just keep asking why. What is their mentality? And she's saying in that sentence, there are different types, just like she has kind of hinted toward at the beginning. We've talked about the credibility. Above all, though, and this is right before the heading toward the middle of the page. Above all, though, bronies claim to like My Little Pony for one reason: it's good. So see how it says bronies claim? That means this is how the bronies perceive themselves to the world around them. One of the questions on the prompt, one of the topics in the Bruce Ballinger reading is, bronies claim to like My Little Pony because it's good. It's kind of a vague reason, but that's what she's trying to say. It's just good, is what the people say. That's what they claim. So she's saying what they claim. Important. Take a look at this right here because I have a lot of questions about this. The brony psychology. You see that it's a subheading, right? Meaning a kind of a title within the piece. It's separated into subheadings. Can we use this in our papers? Yes, we can. There's no reason not to. But if you look at them, there's a technique to putting a subheading in a paper. The brony psychology, as you can see here in this on the second page, it's kind of a brief 2, 3, 4 word introduction to what we're going to be talking about. It's almost like saying, and now we're going to talk about the brony psychology. That's perfectly fine to put in your papers. Don't make every paragraph a subheading. But once you're shifting ideas and formats, it's like numbering, and it's kind of like Year of Magical Thinking if you go back and look at that. But yes, subheadings are fine. Yeah, they're kind of telling you what to look for as you start reading it, saying, hey, look for, I'm talking about the psychology now. Okay, this next paragraph after that is very important. It says, after the subheading, in the middle of the page, in the middle of page 2, it says, some bronies believe online fandoms are a way to fulfill the millennial generation's desire to escape. Now, what is that? That's clearly the writer trying to push a certain stance that the bronies have. This is her hinting toward her angle. It has not been clear yet what her angle is, her reason for writing this. This is where, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, this is where she starts to put that into the paper. She clearly, the author has a stance, an angle, or a thesis, if you want to call it. She's kind of pushing this idea of millennial escapism, the millennial generation's desire to escape, how she puts it. And the title of the piece, The Colorful Side of Millennial Escapism. So we go, okay, she has a stance, she has an angle, she has a thesis, and she's pushing this throughout the piece. It's important that you have a stance and an angle. This is not just a presentation of a group, it's a presentation of your group through your analysis. You're seeing a group do something, and you're not just reporting it. This is not just reportage. You are showing me the group, or showing your reader the group, and interpreting that group's. Why are they doing it? What is their reason? Etc., etc. What is your analysis of this group? Not just a summary, meaning a picture or a snapshot. It's not what this is. This is about your writing. All right, so there we can kind of see the hints of her angle. I would say try to make your angle clearer from the beginning. It always kind of helps more. You could argue that she does that in this paper with the title. Might not be enough for your papers. You might first, second, third paragraph say, hey, this is what I'm writing about in terms of this group. Not just, I'm writing about this group. I'm writing about this group because I think, etc., etc., would be your thesis. So try to put that, I would say try to put that toward the beginning. It's something I kind of have issue with this model. Okay. Notice how she starts to put in Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, Veronica Mars. What do you think that's doing? What that's doing is comparing the bronies with other groups with large fandoms, other shows with large fandoms. So we know that bronies have large fandoms, and she's kind of saying, just like this, and just like this. It's making it more relatable. All of a sudden, we're getting a clearer sense of who bronies are. We're saying, oh, that's actually not as strange as I thought coming into this paper. I know people that are huge fans of Star Wars and dress up to go see the movies when they come out. I don't necessarily find that as strange as I found what a brony was, but maybe now I do because I see that she's comparing it. That next paragraph is something I want to stop on. Also, it says Exen Marlowe, a lady brony, a term some female fans use, others call themselves Pegasisters, doesn't really participate in the in-person brony community in New York. Again, doing a couple of things. Who is Exen Marlowe? A character, just like we've used in other papers. Just like we talked about in an argumentative essay, it's showing one person to kind of expand out into the group, also through contrast, but it's saying, here, I've gotten a hold of one of the members of this group, and I'm going to explain who she is so you can get a better sense of some people that might be in this group. This sentence is also using this character to show dynamics in the group. This is what she does. That does not necessarily mean that this is what they all do. Still, it's important to see one, because we get a sense of, we can ask them directly, we can directly ask them questions about the group. It adds a lot of validity and information and dynamics about the group. I want to point out the writing technique here. Again, that's the most important part about a paper, is the technique of writing it. So notice how it feels like she's kind of learning this as the piece goes forward. Meaning, again, revealing information bit by bit by bit, introducing a character as the piece goes on, another bit, another piece of information. It almost feels like she is learning it through the writing as we are. I know that sounds kind of lofty, but remember the phrase learning through inquiry means it very much feels to me like she's discovering these ideas as she is writing the piece. Like she has been given this assignment to write about, almost like she's been given the topic and the group, and it's up to her to go explore the group. And the way she's writing it almost sounds like, hey, I discovered this too. Oh, I'm learning this too. I'm learning this too. That's completely fine as a way to write your ethnography. It can add some interest by saying, oh, you're learning this. Oh, you're learning this. Uh, Tinker around with that and see if that's something you can use in your papers. Um, so what exactly that that kind of leads me to the question: what exactly is the writer Jessica Goodman's involvement in the piece? Uh, I haven't seen any first-person sentences that relate to her, meaning she could have said, "I walked into Webster Hall in New York City, and I saw bronies, and I asked X Gen, or I asked whoever, and as I stepped, no, she hasn't done that at all. But it still kind of feels that she is involved because we see information, we glean that that's from her observations. She, as a writer of this paper, has chosen to take herself, writing in a writerly sense, out of it. So are we just saying bronies are this, bronies, or are we putting ourselves in it? You can. You can say, I found I found a piece of a Slytherin flag from Harry Potter on the Quidditch pitch on Tulane's campus. That could mean a lot. I could say, oh, and I found this, and this might mean this, and then I put my analysis. You can use I. This is a research paper in a sense, and in any research papers, you can always use an I, despite what you might think. So yes, you can still use the first person and include yourself narratively. Think of all the structures we've learned. In the last reading, we saw a collage, we saw a day in the life, um, we've seen narrative, like our personal narratives. Think of the uh, narrative arc, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion. Uh, Always can be used. If we go to the next page, page 3. Another thing, at the end of the paragraph on top of page 3, a tattoo on her left forearm. I just want to point that out real quick. That's a very interesting detail. It's very detailed. She relies heavily in this piece on details, as you can see clearly. So you can see now how important they will always be in any form of writing, speaking, or communication that you can possibly do. When you tell me a story, when you tell me an important piece of information, when an anchor on TV, a news anchor on TV is trying to get important news out, they still use examples and heavy, heavy, clear details. Always important. Um, and in that sentence, a tattoo on her left forearm, you can tell that the writer has seen this. She's detailing something she's seen. That may seem simple, but you can tell the writer was somewhere that she saw this. So, like it says on the prompt, she has done field research, meaning she went and saw this. Now, because of our current situation, we might not be able to go to the Quidditch pitch at Tulane and watch them play, but we got to be resourceful here in some way. How can we find them online? How can we talk to them through the internet? Um, Again, let me clarify right here. You can choose one or the other. You can do an interview or you can do field research. If you just find it impossible to do one, try to do the other. You can find field research sort of online, meaning search for your group online and see. Let's say you're writing about Black Lives Matter protest group. There's tons of videos on the internet. Try to avoid sensational, biased videos that try to paint a certain picture. Try to be as objective as possible, because what we want, again, is your analysis, your voice, interpretation, and analysis. Um, we see as she goes down in that section of bronies of all stripes, a second paragraph under that subheading, it says, I'm not into the show. I would never go. I'm not into the show. I would never go to a convention. It's not for me, she paused. It's a little too fanboy. So you can see there's already some kind of friction in the dynamics of this group. So not only has the writer here focused on details and scenes, she's also focused on a lot of characters. Why do you think her reason for this is? Quite obviously, it's to show that there are differences in the group members. Okay? That's why she's relying heavily on character in this piece. Essentially, what I want you to take from this piece is her use of details, narrative, scenes, and character, all of which are important. To what degree? It's up to you. What establishes authority? What establishes pathos, etc., etc. I wrote down here on that piece of paper, because I kind of noticed this at this point, is this progressing like a narrative? Are we seeing her kind of go through this day or through this segment of time where she's seeing the concert? I would say almost. This is almost in narrative form. It's almost like when you watch a documentary about where someone goes and sees someone for a day, or a news report where they go and talk about a group of people doing something, and it goes through a narrative, but is interspersed every once in a while with a character outside of that time where they're talking about them. Kind of like if you've ever watched a reality show, like The Real World or whatever's on now, and scenes are happening, and then the camera changes and you see the person in a confessional booth looking at the camera alone, saying, "And then this happened." Actually, I see this a lot on baking shows on Netflix right now, or on Food Network or whatever, where they're racing to get something baked, and then all of a sudden it says, "And then I lost the flour," or, "Oh man, I accidentally put the chocolate in the freezer for too long," to the cameras themselves alone. That's kind of an interview during a scene. So what I'm saying is there seems like there's kind of a narrative going on here with some kind of diversions into character interview. We're going to finish this up right now. Last page, page 4. Read it on your own. Obviously, you already have. The last 2 paragraphs. Do you think that this is a good enough conclusion? When you finish on those 2 paragraphs, when you're done with it, do you feel you know what she meant by millennial escapism in the brony community? You probably have a clearer sense of what the title meant. I'll admit that the first few times I read this, I got kind of frustrated because I wanted a more concrete conclusion. I wanted more analysis, like I'm probably annoyingly saying in all of these videos. I wanted her reasoning and her interpretation to really tie the whole thing up. Just in case I didn't pick up on certain things, or just in case she was a little bit too elusive, or the characters, they gave me good information, but they didn't quite tell me explicitly what millennial escapism meant in terms of this or in terms of it in general. So my suggestion would be, at the end of any of your ethnographies, no matter what structure you choose, kind of end on your voice, saying what you think. Tell me what your angle is again. Reiterate it and say, as you can see, etc., etc. She ended here with a piece of dialogue. It kind of gives the paper a good sound, in my opinion. Belle reddened and smiled. She held onto a plush animal someone had gifted her. "Thanks, guys," she said. "It was yesterday." Okay, we can glean some information from that. We can understand. But maybe if she would have said, "This is why I'm ending here. This is what ball means. This is," you see what I'm saying? Add some analysis or to make your conclusion, I would suggest. But tell me in the discussion board if you think it works well enough now or not. Uh, Underlined a note here that I really want you to think about. It is even more important now to review summary and analysis. Again, this is not just you presenting the audience to a group, it's you presenting the group and your interpretation and why argue. Your reader is if they're spending their time sitting down looking at something you've written, they are always going to want to know why. Or even if you're speaking to someone, they're going to want to know why. So again, hopefully you have some notes or you can refer back to this video. Go back and look at the coin toss scene that's on the front page of Canvas and think about what exactly is happening objectively and what your interpretation is. And again, get a fuller understanding of what summary is and what analysis is. That's why that video is there. So refer to it. All right, refer to this model as you write it. What I want you to do next, as soon as you can, is read the ethnography, which is on the front page of Canvas. It's called, the file I believe is called Mamatas Elvin Like Me. Mamatas Elvin, Elvin, Like Me. The article is called Elvin Like Me, Other Can Come Out of the Closet by Nick Mamatas, or Mamatas, I think it is. So it looks like this, but without all the writing all over it. So find that on the front page of Canvas. It should be the next ethnography. It should be the next file after Bronies, right around there. Print that out or look at it on the computer, whatever you're doing. And that will be the next thing we discuss soon. In the meantime, I want to let you know that I'm about to make a video to talk about how to create a works cited page. We talked about finding sources, how to put those sources into the text. So please look at the in-text citation cheat sheet, which I showed you and referred to you in the last video. And the next video you see should be another screenshot video of how to create a works cited page. It will be brief. So yes, do that. Read Elvin Like Me, Other Can Come Out of the Closet by Nick Mamatas, and jump on the discussion board. Tell me, maybe say what you liked about it, say what you didn't like about it, say that this didn't really make sense to me. Start talking to your classmates. Give me some details about it. What was the best sentence? What was the worst sentence? Etc. There's a lot to say about this that I'm sure I didn't cover. Okay, make sure you look out for the next video on how to create and format a works cited page. Again, this is video number 1 for the week of April 13th. All right, guys.